Welcome back to Market on Close. It's time for Options Corner. We'll bring in Kevin Green to the conversation. He's our senior markets correspondent here on the Schwab Network. Kevin, what are you taking a look at as we head into the close today? I'm looking at the board. We see a lot of green across our major indices. A good day all in all.
Yeah, it's been a good day. Yesterday going into the close, the last 15 to 20 minutes or so, we did see actually some pretty decent volatility and a lot of volume actually taking place as well. And I'm actually looking to see if that's going to happen today. I mean, if you actually kind of look at the daily chart and the levels that we're looking at going into the close, we actually did have a pretty decent down candle there, about maybe 20 minutes or so. We have been able to recover. But at the end of the day, we are starting to see a lot more volatility going into these closes. And then we are also seeing a lot more volume taking place as well. This morning we kind of highlighted this 64.80-ish area as a potential area of first resistance, and if that does kind of take place and we are able to kind of maintain and break above that, we're going to go to potentially 6,500. But going into the close, 64.85 is your major area of resistance. That's where we see the most, calls that are being transacted right now on the S&P 500 options that are expiring today. Actually, easily over 100,000 contracts. We're getting close to hitting almost 200,000 contracts daily for the top tick, which is actually crazy to see that ramp up in 0 DTE options here. To the downside, though, if we're looking at an area of support, 64.70 is what I have my eye out on. So, a 15-point range for now. You want to be able to hold it. You don't want to see any type of major flush going into the close, and we are seeing actually liquidity improving. Yesterday we talked about the book depth for the E-mini S&P 500 futures continuing to look fairly healthy. Today we probably eclipsed the market depth that we've seen all year, just meaning that there's a lot of buyers, there's a lot of sellers, a lot of orders that are out there. That could be a good sign, that could be a bad sign. We'll figure out after this report. The last time that we had this deep of liquidity in that futures contract, Marley, was pretty much at the highs before we started pulling back. Back in January 20th, we kind of stalled out and then saw a little bit of a pullback. And in fact, if you kind of look at the relationship between market depth at these extreme levels and the performance of the S&P 500, that usually does indicate a near-term top in the market, or at least a pullback in the market. So for what it's worth, interesting day today, green on the screen. Let's hopefully see if we can maintain this after the Nvidia earnings tonight.
Yeah, green on the screen, looking out for potentially seeing some volatility in the last few minutes like we saw yesterday. But of course, you mentioned Nvidia. We've got Nvidia, coming up after the close. We'll have them live on the show at 4:20. Their earnings coming out. But how much movement, what specifically are you looking at as we head into those earnings and then in the aftermath even?
Yeah, well, we're looking at the advanced minus declining stocks for the NYSE. I think that's going to be a very telltale sign. Look, today we have a really decent day for the S&P 500, but we also have the equal weight S&P 500 actually outperforming. So it's not only just the mega cap names that we're focusing on and Nvidia and what have you, but you are still seeing that kind of broadening out of this market. And that's actually a really good sign for now. If we're able to kind of continue to see that, even if we do have a pullback with Nvidia, like we have seen in the past, 3 out of the 4 reports, we actually were lower 2 days later. But if we're able to see maybe a rotation, the market may be able to at least hold up or try to reduce the amount of impact that Nvidia is going to have. Now, it's going to be very hard to do that at 7% of the overall S&P 500. But at the end of the day, if dollars are still maintaining within the system and the S&P 500 as a whole and staying in the market and just rotating, I think that's ultimately good for the bulls, especially for the long term. We still have that turbulence period potentially in September. But at the end of the day, I mean, we're still looking good if you're kind of looking at market structure outside of maybe some signs of potential fracturing.
And anything else that you were keeping an eye on today, Kevin?
Yeah, so we're going to be talking about Nvidia. Well, I don't have the pleasure of doing that today. You guys have others that are going to be able to do that along with you, Marley. But not only just looking at Nvidia, but the other components or these other plays or complementary plays within this market actually probably sets up a little bit better for traders. And this is not a recommendation, but what's actually interesting is seeing stocks like an SMCI, or even if you're looking at a Broadcom for that matter, they tend to actually have pretty decent reactions. And so you're looking for stocks that have obviously a little bit lower float, maybe a specialty that's a part of the components for Nvidia's GPUs that tend to see a little bit more of an aggressive move, either to the upside or downside. So we're looking for about a $9 move to the upside or downside for Nvidia. But if you're looking at SMCI, there's only about I just calculated it, it's only about a 3.7% move to the upside or downside if you're looking at the option straddle right now, which is fairly underpriced because every single earnings announcement for Nvidia does actually create a pretty decent reaction when it comes to SMCI. You're talking about at least 6%, 8% moves after the fact next day or 2 days later. So keep your eye out on a stock like this and others that might actually be able to move off of the commentary from Nvidia in the conference call.
Well, Kevin, thanks for breaking all of that down for us.